Hey, Shalom Aleichem. We're going to have a relatively short share today just to finish off Tafnun Beis, the final simon of Hagalas Kalim, and some of the ideas, some key ideas here, which have to do with the actual process of the Haggalah. So the Shulchan Aruch starts off in Tafnun Beis, Nechos Pesach, Yesh lizar lahagil kodem shachem mishis, kedei shelo yitztarech ledaktek im hakelim b'nei yoma olav. We have to be careful if we're doing Haggalah. We should to do the Haggalah before the 5th hour of Erev Pesach from Chametz, in order that you shouldn't have to be didactic if the Kalim are B'nai Yaman, and the Ramah adds, "Oh, im yashishim amayim neged kli shemagel olav," or if there's going to be 60 in the water connected what you're doing Haggalah on. So the Mishnah Berurah explains that the reason for all this is that the reason he says Tam Lazeh in Sifkat and Aleph, the Inyan Haggalahu Durasichas Hamayim Mutzias Abaluha B'Kli. The boiling water is going to take that's what we're trying to accomplish over here, is to extract the chametz out of the kli from the boiling water with Haggalah. V'yesh lochush ta'achar shemutzias Abaluha Yachsov Yibala B'Kli Masha Palta. Nechshash Zeh Kasav Poskim Ein L'Haggalah Rakadei Kli She'ena Ben Yama. So there's no problem over here if it's going to be after Shachamishis that whatever's in the Kli should be taken out. The problem is that it's going to be bolea back into the Kli. Our concern is that whatever comes out is going to go back in. And therefore, they said that it should be an Ena Ben Yomo. Because if it's Ena Ben Yomo, then whatever comes out of the Kli is then Lifgam, and we're not concerned about Tam Lifgam going back into the Kli. Das Afim Yuval Amashtapolat Har Lifgamhu. And Nosan Tam Lifgam does not aser anything. That's not a problem if it's Nosan Tam Lifgam. So it's after 24 hours, we accomplish that. There's no issue anymore if things go out and back in again. Or in a situation where it's not going to be Lifgam, where it's going to be within 24 hours, Sheyeh B'mayim Shishim Levatel as Pleitzas Iser. It's Erev Pesach, and it's already after the Zman Iser. It's already after Shachamishis. So then, if you don't have it Lifgam, then you have to have at least that it's going to be Shishim Kenegdo, that whatever comes out of the Kli into the water becomes totally batel. And then there's nothing to go back into the Kli. Now, on Pesach itself, this would not work, because there is still something in the water. So the something in the water on Erev Pesach, even Bizman Iser, there's a Bittul B'Shishim. So the Bittul B'Shishim helps that what comes back in is considered nothing. It's considered inconsequential, and it's not a problem. But on Pesach itself, that there is no Bittul on Pesach. The Pesach's Asar Afilu B'Mashu, even 1 in 1,000, or it doesn't matter, it's always Asar. So this fact that it's Batal and Shishim is not going to help us on Pesach itself, only on Erev Pesach. So these two things we have to be concerned about, that if it's Kodem Shachamishis, then it's not an issue. Why that's so? Because it says in Mishnah Berurah, that these two necessities, to have it either Ena Ben Yomo or it to be less than Shishim, the Magal Kodem Shachamishis, the Ein Sarach Lizar B'chol Zeh. There's no concern about all this. Should Az Halahu Adayan Zman Heter Chametz. Because before Shachamishis, which is really the Mishnah Berurah points out later on, that's Shah Revis, because the Arvida Rabbanan we asked from the 4th hour of the day. So we're talking about earlier in the day, before the 4th hour of daylight hours of Erev Pesach. Up until that point, it's still Zman Heter Chametz. There's no Isser on the Chametz itself. Havalei Nosin Tam Bar Nosin Tam Lehetera. Then we have what we've spoken about many times in the past, that he explains that we have 2 levels of Nosin Tam. Dahainu, Datam Shal Chametz Shekiblu HaKelim Mitchila Haya Shal Heter. First, we have the Tam that went into the Kli. You cooked noodles a couple of days before Pesach. So now you have a Tam of Heter, of Chametz, of the noodles in the walls of the Kli. And the pot is clean, but you have the absorption of the Chametz into the walls. But Tam Shal Mayim Shekiblu Ata Min HaKelim Gamken Deteruhu. And also the taste that goes from the Kli into the water, that's called Nat Bar Nat. And then we have even a third Nat, because many poskim hold you need to have three levels of Nat to be considered Nat Bar Nat. So then you have you have from the noodles to the walls of the kli, that's 1. For the walls of the kli to the water is 2. And then from the water back into the kli, that's already 3. That everybody agrees. There's a machlokus, a poskim in your idea. As we saw, and it's spoken about in numerous places, that whether you need to have 2 levels of knot or 3 levels of knot, two tamim or 3 tamim to have a heter. Here, in this case, if it's zman heter, then you l'kuli alma have a heter of 3 kelim, 3 tamim. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. So it comes out that, however, if you would have a situation where you were trying to kasher a pot, let's say on Erev Pesach, already after zman iser, to kasher the pot itself, if you don't have a bigger pot to put into it that's going to be shishim, then there's no way to do it. Because you're always going to have shishim kenegdo, and it's already zman iser. The concept of not bar not only works by heter, not by iser. Once the zman iser comes in, then there is no concept of not bar not. Just like by shar isurim, other isurim, treif, there's no concept of not bar not. Because as we explained in the past, not bar not, the way it works is that, let's say for basar v'chalav, if you cook milk in a pot, and then afterwards you cook some noodles or whatever in that pot, so it becomes not bar not to add terah in the noodles, and that becomes mutter to eat with, even to eat with basar afterwards, if need be, after the fact, because since the tam of chalav is so weak to begin with, of those, because the tam after another tam, then when it comes time for to be chal the isser basar v'chalav, you need to have a strong enough tam to be a derech bishul, to be chal the isser basar v'chalav, for the basar to combine with the chalav to be chal the new isser basar v'chalav. So for the chalos of a new isser, it's not going to be chal on something which is already weakened to begin with. So in huadin chametz, that it's heter before Pesach, and then as Pesach comes in, if it's already a tam kalush, it's already not bar not. So then it's not possible for the time of Pesach comes in that now on Pesach it should be chal the isser chametz. It's not going to be chal on something which is already so weak. That's similar to basar chalav. Mash enken, if we're talking about something that's already asur to begin with, it's not talking about, we're not coming to create a chalos isser. There already is a chalos isser. You have treif, you cooked in the pot, and it just went 1 time, 2 time, and 3 time. As long as there's still a mashu of tam that gives tam, doesn't matter how weak it is, it's still the tam that the Torah asur. Because we're not discussing a isser being chal on something which is already weak. We're talking about something that's already asur that just became weak. That's a whole different story. Then there's those 4 of not bar not, and that's why it's important to do the Haggalah before the Shah Chamish or Shah Revis, where before the isser is chal, because then not bar not helps. That's what we see over here. Now, if a person is in a difficult situation, and there are many such situations that have come about, Chazon Ish writes that if you have a necessity to kasher or something which is, let's say, Erev Pesach, after Zman Isser, there was just no way to do it before, and now you have a problem, you have to do it now. So the Chazon Ish writes in Orach Chaim Sim Kuchaf Beis, Ois Vov, that if you will put a chomer hapogem, you'll put some kind of a material in the water before you boil it, that when the tam comes out in the water, like some kind of a strong soap, a very like a caustic material, caustic soap, put in the water, that when the tam comes out of the pot into the water, it's already going to become nifgam in that soap, in that bad tam. So then there's no problem then of it going out and going back into the kli, because once it goes back in the kli, it's already tam levgam, which we learned many times. Tam levgam is not a davra oser. The only time a pot is aser with tam levgam is if you cooked food in the pot where there was not levgam, it was regular food, and then it became pogum afterwards. Then there's a gzera in Chazal of gzera ena ben yoma atu yoma ben yoma, that there's the Gemara of Adazor and Daf Ayin Vav says that we have a gzera that you cook something that's in a pot that's ena ben yoma is aser, since it was cooked to begin with food that was good, had tam l'shvach. So now if you're going to cook in it after it's lefgam, you might come to make a mistake and also cook with pots that are ben yomo, and you're going to be having real isser. So that's if it was cooked to begin with when it was good, but if it went into the pot when it's already pogum, that's not an issue. That's not a problem. So there's a Maisa brought from the name of the Chazon Ish that there was a Maisa in the army many years ago that they had no choice. They had to kasher the pots for Pesach on Erev Pesach, And the Chazon Ish paskin that they should put a lot of soap in the water, and then it would not be an issue even on Erev Pesach, because then in that case you don't have to worry the fact there's no 60 in the pot connected itself, or that it's a ben yomo because the tam that goes out will become tam pogum and went back into the water. And Rav Nissim Karelitz points out that we see the Chazon Ish did not consider the adding a lot of soap into the water to make it considered like shar mashkim, to consider like other liquids, which we will learn later on that we're not supposed to kasher with other liquids. Rather, it's considered water just with soap in it. And also, I saw in the name of Rebbe Yashiv that soap and water is never considered shar mashkim. It's not considered other liquids because it's not misave. It doesn't come thick through the soap. Soap doesn't really thicken the water. It's just in there. And the shar mashkim, one of the reasons that maybe it doesn't work for Agala, according to those poskim, that shar mashkim doesn't work, or they're machmir that way, chatchila, is because it makes the water into like a different consistency than regular water, and maybe we don't know if the Torah meant that should do Hagala or not. That's a machlokes Rishonim later on in the Siman, but the Chazon Ish and Rabbi Yashiv do not consider to put soap in water to be considered shar mashkim like other liquids. There's one other eitzah that's brought down in Igros Moshe, and Rabbi Yashiv also concurs with this, is that in Igros Moshe, Chelik Yoredea, Chelik Beis, Siman Lamed Aleph, at the end of the Siman. So he paskins in a case of loss and a tremendous need that you could kasher even for Isurim. You could kasher, let's say you're in a hotel and you have to kasher your kashrus organization, and you have all the kalim were used in the kitchen the day before for a wedding, and so within 24 hours, and you have a kosher wedding to do, you have to kasher everything out. And if you can't do it, it's going to be a big loss. They can't use the hotel, etc. So Moshe paskin that in such a case, you could actually you could cook a tam pogum in that pot, or let's say you have the silverware, you have to kasher the silverware, it was used within 24 hours. So you could cook them all in a yadsa lettuce pot, as long as it gets to the point of yadsa lettuce, bolea into it a tam lifgam, put some kind of caustic soap in there or something, and that'll give it a bad tam into the kli. Once the bad tam goes into the kli, that's pogim whatever is in the walls of the kli, and then it virtually becomes like a eno ben yoma. And then you're allowed to go ahead and kasher it normally in a regular kasher situation to do hagala, then pour that all into a pot right afterwards. And it's considered hagala by Derish eno ben yoma because it's already pogum. Rav Moshe says in such a case you should do hagala twice. Rav Yashiv only seems to necessitate once. And that depends on Rav Moshe's whole tshuva over there. There's a concept of kashering, of doing hagala twice. So that's a separate inyan. However, Rav Moshe points out one last thing is to be samach on that, on the pogum alone, and use the pot for that, just without doing a separate kashering, just to be pogum it. You put the soap in it and you pogum it. So you say, well, it's tam lifgam now, so theoretically I could use it. It won't make anything usher. That's still usher. We don't know for sure if it was kashered yet. We just know, all we know is that we were pogum the tam. We don't know if it was kashered, and therefore you have to do a regular hagala. You can't just do samach on the pagam alone. Similarly, to use this process on a kli cheres, which we say there's no hagala with kli cheres, so this will also not help because since you need to come onto hagala sof kol sof after the pagam, you have to do a hagala, and we have a klal that the hagala doesn't work by kli cheres, by earthenware vessel. So this process of being pogum it and then kashering it will not help us for a kli cheres. The only thing that could possibly help for kli cheres would be putting it back into the kiln, or to do a liban gomer on it, which we said it's not a question. Then it's not an issue of, we learned last time, it's not an issue of hagala. It's an issue that then it burns away the isser wherever it is through the liban gomer when you actually bring it to the point of sparks flying from it, and that burns it away. So that's no longer an issue. We'll skip over to Mr. Brula in Sivkat and Ches. The Ramah says that going on this, another point that hagala only helps when the mayim are roiskin. They have to actually be boiling. Just hot water is not enough. the Ramah says that the Mishnah Berurah Sifkat and Ches explains that you have to be careful that when you do Hagala, this is a very important thing, that they have to remain in a boiling state, in a bubbling state. So sometimes when you take a big kli and put it in to the other pot that's boiling, it momentarily cools it down. And the boiling process stops for a minute and then it boils up again a few seconds later. So you have to be careful to not put the next kli in until you wait and make sure the water is reboiling. It's actually is bubbling up again. And that's why the Mishnah Berurah ends off that it's proper to, when you do Hagala, like for the city, Erev Pesach, to have a Baal Torah and a Baki, an expert in Dinei Hagala, there with them to make sure that they don't hurry up and do things improperly while the water's not bubbling. Now, there are exceptions to this rule of the water bubbling. One is that if the reason you have to have this is because since it was Bolea al Gabi Eish to begin with on the fire, then it has to be kasher al Gabi Eish, and that's considered al Gabi Eish when it's bubbling. However, number one, if it was a davar heter that was nivla, this is only a davar isser. The davar heter that was nivla into the kli, so then we have a heter then to be magalit even in a kli rishon shelo al Gabi Eish. That's one exception, and this is brought out by the Chazon Ish. And the other exception is that if it was bolea ayidei kli rishon shelo al Gabi Eish, if you, the whole belia on this thing you're kashering was you accidentally put the wrong kli, meat to milk or whatever into a pot. You accidentally put a milk spoon into the chicken soup. It was right off the fire. Since it was nivla to begin with, not on the fire directly, so there would not be a kapeda to do the hagala on it while the water is actually boiling. It's enough that it's a kli rishon on the fire that's very hot, even though it's not actually boiling because it was nivla to begin with, not on the fire. So those would be the exceptions to this rule. Either it was nivla as it ever heter to begin with, like you want to kasher you just got milchik and you wanted to kasher it back to parv, so that would not need bubbling. That would even work by a kli rishon that's not on the fire, and by davar iser, if it was nivla not on the fire, then you could do it on the fire even if it's not actually bubbling up. Those are two exceptions to the rule of the Mishnah Berurah and Sifkat and Ches. The Mishnah Berurah in Sifkat and Yud Gimel, going on the Shulchan Aruch, that said that if you we do Hagala before Pesach, after the 6th hour, so then you have to be nizar in all the things that he had mentioned, that all the things that you said you don't have to be nizar before the 6th hour, you do have to be nizar after the 6th hour. So there the Mishnah Berurah just says that he points out in Yud Gimel that's not lav dafka sheish, it really means the 4th hour. And then he goes through a list of things that you have to, these list of things to be nizar in, but he ends off with an important halacha, and also from the Bir halacha, that all these halachas that we don't have to be nizar for Eina ben Yomo and everything when it's before the 4th hour, because it's hetera bala. Mishnah Berurah says that's me'ikar din. That's how we paskin me'ikar din. But mitzad minhag, and the minhag l'chatchila is the machmir, all the chumras. Even if you do the 4th hour before, still to have all these chumras. Why? Because if you remember, we've spoken in the past number of times in the Shulchan Aruch paskins that chametz, even Erev Pesach, even all year, is called isur bala, because since it's already called chametz, it's just not the zman issue yet, but it's already chametz beforehand, then it's called isur bala. It's the exact same chametz. So we're being makel to all these things, all these kulas we're saying are because we are paskening, we're being samach on the shitas that it's hetera bala. But since there is a shita of the Mechaber himself, the Shulchan Aruch, that holds that it's isur bala, therefore certainly l'chatchila we should also deal with it as much as possible like an isur, and therefore to not do the hagala on the kelim for Pesach, even for the 4th hour, even Erev Pesach, not to do it unless it's in Eino ben Yomo, or the 60 keneged the chametz. Eino ben Yomo, that would turn it into not bar not to hetera, even according to the Mechaber, or the taste that goes back in doesn't matter to us because it's already tam of gam, or the 60 that the tam becomes totally batal and it doesn't matter if it goes back on the walls. So that's what the minig is l'chatchila, even before Pesach, to wait, to always do it after it's Eno Ben Yomo, because of that shita. In Sif Beis, where the Shulchan Aruch says that we should be careful not to do Yisuzar b'lahagel kli abasar klei chalab b'yachad. You should be careful not to. It's ideal, says the Mechaber, not to do hagala of a. You want to kasher a milchuk kli and a fleshik kli, so you put them both into a big par pot. You want to kasher them both together. He says one should be nizhar, means careful. It's ideal not to do that. Now the lashon of ideal, the Mishnah Berurah points out that that's the Shulchan Aruch l'shitaso. The Shulchan Aruch in Yordei Tzivin Tzadik Heis of Gimel paskins that if you kasher a milchuk and a fleshik pot, even if they are both bnei yaman in the same water, since it's not bar nat, you have the water that goes, the taste that went into the pot. Those two pots, one milchuk and one fleshik, and then it goes from there to the water. That's not bar nat. So by the time that the fleshik and milchuk tastes will touch each other, they're already not bar nat te'etera, and therefore it's mutter. That's why he says, even though it's mutter, it's still ideal to try to do them separately, or at least one after the other, not at the same time. Ramah, however, on the spot there in Tzaddik Heis Gimel, is cholak on the Mechaber and holds that since you don't have three knots yet, but the taste of the milk and the meat are gonna collide into each other, while it's still in the second level of tam, you don't have yet not bar not te'etera, which that Ramah necessitates that. So there, it's a real isser. It's that both kalim will actually become usser if they were both bnei yaman. They will be mutter if it's zeh achar zeh. One after the other is mutter, because then it will taka be not bar not, because then by the time it gets to the next pot, we're only worried about what went into the walls, whatever. By the time there's no two timing clashing into each other at the same time. But if it is the same time, the Ramah holds it's a real isser. So the lesson of Shulchan Aruch here, yesh li zahir, would be incorrect according to the Ramah. It would mean that it would actually be usher. And I guess the fact that Ramah didn't say anything over here because he's being somach when he wrote it near Adea. But it's interesting that he didn't even mention to look over there, because according to the Ramah, this is really usher to do. Now, and another nekuda here, the Mishnah Berurah in Sivkat Chaf, going on the Lashon Ramah, the Ramah says that the Ramah says, "Aken nagu in the end of Sif Beis shelo lahagel shum kli ben yamo," never to be magel any kli that's a ben yamo. And what does it mean shum kli, any kli? And Mishnah Berurah says in Chaf that means to say whether it's basar techala or chametz to matzah, even if you're kashering it by itself, and it's before the 5th hour. Why is that so? Why no kli? Because it's a gzeira shema yago kli shel isra b'pachas mishishim, and there it won't help because it's going to asa the kli, etc. So therefore, it's a minhag, not an isra, but a minhag not to ever kasher any kli that's in a binyama. Like we mentioned before, if it's shasat chak, then we put the soap in it, etc. Then that we have that heter. So the so the post can say that includes also if you're kashering your tables, and you're kashering your countertops, and all these things that we kasher, not just kalim. So they also were included in this minhag to always be nizhar to do it after Meis Lei. So to let it sit for 24 hours without being used with anything hot of isser, or if it was isser to begin, that was nivla, anything hot at all, because anything hot at all will become chanan, it will become the davar isser and re-asr the thing itself, and it will start the clock of 24 hours over again. So therefore we should wait for using anything hot at all in a case of isser to wait for 24 hours before from using it to the time you do the hagala. Couple last points. In the Shulchan Aruch in Sif Hey that says we can't do hagala with chametz feria, with natural springs, hot springs, because they're not heated up by fire. The halacha tells us you need to use water that was heated by fire in order to do hagala. because the Shulchan Aruch says, "Mipnei she'ena told us ur," because it's not told us ur. Kabola kach polta. Ma bola ayde told us ur. Apolta ayde told us ur. If you had something that was cooked on the fire, the only way you can kasher it is by water that was also cooked on a fire. Even though you might, so the poskim will say that even if you have something which is just as hot as it would have been as heated by fire, like if you have a boiling hot natural spring and the water is boiling from the natural spring, even so, you cannot use that to kasher with, because we don't say kabbalah kapolto. It's not actually heated by fire, which there is a type of a fire, but it's not the fire that we cook with, and therefore it doesn't help. So there's a lot of interesting shilas bisman hazeh. The poskim clear the shilah according to this, that what if you have something which is heated by an electric coil, like on our stovetops that are heated by an electric coil. If they're heated by the gas flame, obviously that's fire. But electric coil, so is that considered told us aish? It's a question, but the Maisa is brought down b'shem and the Sefer Shvus Yitzchak and the name of Yashiv and Shlomo Zalman Zatzal, that since the coil gets red hot when it hits the water, that red hot has a din of fire. The redness of the coil gives the din of fire, and therefore it's considered told us aish, not some other power. So based on that, I think that I know that there are those that are when they kasher by putting what's called a kaf hashmal. This type of in Eretz Yisrael are very common. They just put them in a cup of tea, and you put it in there, and it heats up the water. So now that actually never gets red hot. I don't think there's any element, but that's one type. There's another type also that Rosh Zalman had a back and forth with, the famous tshuva of Rosh Zalman, back and forth a discussion in person with the Chazon Ish, and then a back and forth letters, that if you would have a heating element, which was common then, even today, that you'll have the two electric nodes will be in the water. They're not touching each other, but the current that they cause will heat up the water. The electric current is what heats the water, not any redness of any element. So according to the Svara brought down from Shlomo Zalman Yashiv, that the reason that the electric coils help is because they get red hot and heat the water with that koach of fire. So Shlomo Zalman there argued with the Chazon Ish and held that it should not even be bishul on Shabbos to use the electrodes, which the current which gets closed between them by the water in between them just causes the water to heat up. So that would to me would be pashut that just like Shlomo Zalman holds it might not be bishul on Shabbos, although the Chazon Ish disagreed. Or Shlomo Zalman brought many rise afterwards that that's not the case. So we should not use water that was heated in that way, unless you know that it was heated in some way that there's a red hot coil. Similarly, there's a shaila about water that was heated up. Water's heating is being boiled in a microwave. Can that be used for hagala? If something was cooked on a fire, a regular fire, can you use water that's being boiled in a microwave to kasher it? Something boiled in the fire. So if the kli was only nivla, it was absorption through a microwave to begin with. So since the kabbalah kachpolta, if it was absorbed through a microwave, you can kasher it through microwave water. But if water was heated on a real fire, so that Ramosha has a tshuva that since it's derech bishul v'kach, and he holds that's way in Shabbos, microwave is considered bishul in Shabbos. Ramosha holds that that's also a derech bishul, and it's enough to be heated by microwave to be kasher to do hagala. But according to the Svara, we said before from Shlomo Zalman and Rabbi Yashiv that the only reason the electric coil is okay is because it gets red hot. That would not be the case with the microwave. So it would stand to reason, according to them, water heated by a microwave would not work for hagala. And in fact, I saw brought in the name of Rabbi Yashiv that he in fact did say that it would not help. So that would then come out to be a machlokas halacha l'maisa between Rav Moshe, who's mekel, and Rav Shlomo Zalman and Rabbi Yashiv that would be machmir not to do hagala with water that's boiled in a microwave. It's not really that practical anyway, because unless you would have a situation where you could take it out of the microwave and it's still actually boiling up, it's actually bubbling. So only then would it be nachmina. That would be hard to come by. A dud shemesh, common in Eretz Israel. We have in other countries as well. We have them here. That water that was heated by a solar panel, solar heat. So there's a question on Shabbos about that. What that water, is it considered bishul b'chama or todos chama? Which if it's only chama, you're allowed to cook directly in the sun on Shabbos, but not todos chama, not things which are cooked by the sun to take it to the next level. That's a gzera. So most poskim take on, and that's the very first edition of Shmir Shabbos Kol Chasa. He was makel with that on Shabbos, and then Rishon Zalman told him he has to be machmir, and that's how it's brought down there. That's considered toldos chama, but everyone agrees it's for sure not considered fire, and therefore water which is heated by a solar panel would not work for kashering kelim because it's not heated by fire. Similarly, steam. Rav Moshe has a tshuva Yordei Aleph Siman Samach that you cannot do hagala with steam. Steam is a different process. Doesn't have the power. It heats up, but it does not have the power to suck out the isser out of the kli. That would not help. The only thing we mentioned last time, Moshe held, and if you have a steaming machine that doesn't just use pure steam, but it actually creates a layer of moisture on the surface, and it gets above about 170 degrees, that would be a different story. But otherwise, you cannot kasher with steam itself. It has to be water heated by fire. The Ramah here talks about in Sifhei that we just mentioned before, about talking about the soap, that you cannot do hagala in any other things, using any other material but water, any other medium. Now, this is actually a tremendous machlokas, and the Ramah over here, the lashon is ein magilin. It doesn't say aser, because in fact he ends off miu b'diavad mahani hagala b'chol mashke. B'diavad, after the fact, it would work b'chol mashke. Mr. Rowe points out that that's the shita of the Rashba, and Rav Moshe points out even further that that's not only the Rashba, but it's actually Rov Rishon. Rov poskim hold that way. It's a mute of poskim to hold that other mashkim do not work. We're choshes that it doesn't work. So therefore, Rav Moshe takes on that. This is in Rav Moshe in Yordei Chelik Beis Siman Mem Aleph. The B'diavad, or by, let's say, in any case, the Bishop Ruz Mikkel B'diavad, but in any case where there's a suffix if something needs hagala or not, like you're not sure if it fell in Isser or not, or you're sure, you have some suffix whether it really needs hagala, a plausible suffix, a bona fide suffix. So then, in that case, you would be l'chatchila if you don't have anything but other mashkim to use. L'chatchila, you could use other mashkim to kasher it because since that's a steak edina, but Rov Poskim hold that it does work. And now you have a suffix, so certainly sekel hakel. And I would just add to that kol sheken, based on the minig that we're all going with, that you're not going to be kashering anything unless it's after 24 hours. So it only becomes a suffix d'Rabbanan. So then certainly it would be okay to kasher that. Okay. Just one last part. We'll just say the Mishnah Berurah in Sifkat Lama Gimel talks about if you want to boil water over the sides of the pot to kasher the pot out, you should use an Evan Rasachla, boiling a burning hot stone. Mishnah Berurah says the tzonenes v'tzan in. If it's a cold stone, it's going to cool off the water rather than heat it up, and it's not going to have boiling water to kasher the pot. So it would seem kasher according to that another way around that would be if you take a ladle or some metallic type of thing and put it into the pot and let it sit there for a few minutes, then the kuli alma, if it sits there for a minute or so, then it also takes on a din of a kli rishon during the time that it's in the water. Then you could use that surface to go around the top of the pot to spill the water all around it without heating up a separate stone. It would be a lot easier to do that, to spill the water around it in order to kasher the rest of the pot. Okay, so for all the practical purposes right now, that will finally, as we can say, Baruch Hashem, finish Hagalas Kelim. I know it's been a difficult subject. For me, time-wise, I've had a number of challenges and unexpected trips, and personal things going on in the family. So I apologize for the lateness from my end of it, and I know that others also needed more time to finish it. But Baruch Hashem, we finished now, and it's Hashem in the next couple of days. I hope to get out the Bechina to you. But I know that we're all under time constraints, so we're going to lengthen the time of the Bechina, that you can do it over the period of the summer, have it by the no later than the end of August back to me. And by that time also you'll get back all your other Bechinas. So we'll have everything finished by that time to go into the fall, to start a new, with Hashem, a new slate coming into Rosh Hashanah, as we want to always start something new Rosh Hashanah anyway. It's a new slate. And Mr. Hashem, right now the plans are to go from, the next limud should be Hilchos. I believe I have to work through the chart and everything to see how it works, but I'm hoping that we're going to have enough time for the staff con to be able to learn Hilchos Mezuzah, which would be a very geschmack limud. If it will be not enough time, then we might revert back to Tfilas Kalim, which don't be scared. It's much easier than this. It's much shorter and much easier, and also very geschmack. But it's also it's the other side of the coin of Agalos Kalim is Tfilas Kalim. So we'll do it at some point, maybe first or maybe second, with Hashem. And in the meantime, Mr. Hashem will be in touch, and all the best. Kol Tov.